back to AHA Business Radio, creating AHA moments for business, by business, and about business. And now it's time for tonight's AHA Trivia Question, where you can win great prizes from the AHA Business Radio Show. Call 410-481-1300 if you know the answer. And now, with tonight's AHA Trivia Question, here's your host, Allan Hirsh.
Welcome back. Tonight's trivia question. Which president warned the nation to keep a watchful eye out on the military-industrial complex? He did this in his farewell speech. So please, if you think you know the answer, give us a call at 410-481-1300. And the person with the correct answer will receive a gift certificate to the Fleet Street Kitchen, a member of the Bagby Restaurant Group here in Baltimore. Again, the question is, which president told the nation to keep a watchful eye on the military-industrial complex? I'm in the studio with Linda Katz-Wilner, Successfully Speaking, and we've been talking about trying to be a successful speaker. So it's a great title. We were talking a little bit about the verbal when we went to the last break. I just want to make sure we talked about the grammar and the big words that people want to say, erudite, when in fact it's speaking over their heads and not to them. What about someone that's really speaking in overly simplified language? Is that a problem as well sometimes?
I don't think it's a problem if you're getting your message across. It may be the manner in which you're speaking, and that gets back to the vocal.
Okay.
So if I'm speaking so simply and speaking so slowly, the audience may become impatient. But if my vocabulary is simple, if my vocabulary is simple and you're understanding me, what's the point of communication? It's to relay information and have somebody understand it.
But talking too erudite usually doesn't create the message.
Right, and especially if you're stressing the wrong syllables.
Right.
And you're not even saying it correctly,
right.
Then you're shooting yourself in the foot, which is another thing, idioms.
Right.
And using idioms, people may not understand you, especially if it's an international audience.
Oh, yeah. I traveled a lot internationally in the publishing business, and one of the famous ones in Italy is in the mouth of wolves or something. It's like it's break a leg here. And it's I have a caller in Bob. Bob, welcome to the show. Do you have an answer to the trivia question?
I sure do. It's President Dwight Eisenhower.
You're absolutely correct. Thank you for calling.
That's because I'm a baby boomer. I know that stuff. Well,
so am I. That's why I picked the question.
Rock and roll, brother.
Particularly with the interesting election we just went through.
Hey, this show is real interesting. This is right up my alley. Now, let me ask you guys a question.
Go ahead.
Is it her and her mother, or is it she and her mother went to the store? I think it's she and her mother.
You're right.
You're right.
She,
Thank you.
Say it alone.
I hate when people say her and her mother. No, it's she and her mother.
Because the English it's the subject of the sentence. She went to the store.
Thank you.
You're welcome very much, Bob. Would you hold the line for Nathan, and he'll get your address and information so we can send out that gift certificate to you?
Sure.
Okay?
Thank you.
So I want to pull it all together because you talked about we've talked about them as individual attributes, good or bad. But in reality, you have to put them all together to really communicate.
Absolutely.
So what do you do and how do you do that with some of them? Because you're concentrating, I guess, some people in one, some of the others, and really it's about pulling it together.
Right. It's pulling it together and having them balanced, right, or in alignment, because many times I'm sure you've spoken to somebody on the phone. They sound very good. Their grammar is very good. They have an excellent sales message, let's say, and then they walk into your office and you're shocked by their appearance. So there's the disconnect. And when that happens, we don't know which is really the real person. And that may influence us in the wrong way. So we may say, well, they don't have a professional appearance. I don't really trust them. And it's not fair, but we tend to do that. So we need to know that the visual, the vocal, the verbal are fully balanced so that one doesn't mislead us. Because as soon as one is out of balance, it confuses us and we may misinterpret what they're saying. So my goal is to have them identify it. And my clients love this ability to say, okay, visual, vocal, verbal. I know I'm working really well on my visual, and that's improved, and I see it on video. I look great, and my voice is now sounding better. I've learned a lot of tips. But what do I say? How do I think on my feet? And so that's where I have another acronym, and that's the TIES acronym. That's TIES. T means state your topic. I means introduce it. E means give a few examples. And most importantly, S means tie it up, summarize it. So you go through the topic, introduce, examples, summary. It's all tied up in a nice package, and you think of ties, and that's going to help you speak on your feet. So when in some of my public speaking classes, if we do some impromptu talking and somebody has to talk on a topic, they say using this outline really helps them. And Allan, it's the same as if you gave a 3-hour presentation. You have your introduction, you have your body, and you have your conclusion.
Same thing in you write a book of the publishing business, you write an article. You have to make sure, and it's part of that agenda you have to create on when you're speaking.
And so the problem with verbal, many people think about the visual and the vocal, and they know they're supposed to say something, but they don't know how to organize it, or they don't know how to be done. They ramble, so they never get to that summary. And that's another thing that I would do with my clients. Make sure you know what your message is and be able to put it in the beginning, put it at the end, and then it's a bookended message, and then I sound very organized.
So I've heard some other people that do public speaking talking about trying to limit the number of topics or to a limited number because we can only comprehend so much in a given presentation. Is that true or not?
It is true. Science shows, research shows that, well, I think the research is actually that we can't handle more than 7 numbers, right? That's why phone numbers have hyphens. That's why Social Security numbers have hyphens. But in reality, to me, the best type of presentation is give somebody 3 takeaways, 3 things to think about. Because when I start giving 5 or 7 or 9, they're all over the place, and you can't do each of those topics justice. People can't walk away and say, oh, right, there were 11 things he talked about today, and I'll tell you what they are. But if I only tell you 3, we seem to be able to hold on to that very easily. I spoke about the 3 V's, right? You'll remember visual, vocal, verbal. 3 parts. Very often we talk in 3s. Some famous speeches, they talk in 3s. So that's a good strategy, that number. It's
the same. That's interesting. That's the same number that some other people that I know that do what you do have mentioned, which is why I brought it up. I also want to, which we haven't talked about, you also have published a number of books.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about them in the last couple minutes? I know it's brief, and then how people can get the books if they want them so they can follow up with you. Sure.
We didn't talk a lot about this today, but I do a lot of work with people who speak English as a second language. And my colleague, Marjorie Feinstein-Whitaker, and I have a company called ESL Rules, where we've developed 11 products to help intermediate to advanced speakers, mostly professionals who are in the workplace, modify their accent. And we even have one called Boston Rules to help modify the Boston accent.
About the Brooklyn accent.
Well, we haven't done that. I've worked on my New York accent because I had a very strong New York accent about 30 years ago, and I learned not to talk like a New Yorker. And so
it was beaten. I wasn't beaten. It was talked. It was. My wife was born and raised in Manhattan, and her parents both. My mother grew up in Brooklyn, and the accent was forbidden in the house.
And it gives an understanding and appreciation for the discrimination or the stereotypes we receive when we have accents. I had it myself with a New York accent, not living in New York. And so I had that sensitivity, and we have developed some training materials for that as well.
So that's all available on your website?
It's on both websites. It's eslrules.com, and also my website, which is successfully, SUCCESSFULLY - speaking.com.
And so how else can individuals reach you? Also, the website, your telephone number if they want to call, if they're interested?
Absolutely. My telephone number is 410-356-5666. They can also contact me. I do have a Facebook page, which is at Success, SUCCESS Speaking. So there are 3 S's in there. That's my Facebook page for the business, and I do post a lot of good tips about communication there.
So before we end, any 1 or 2 special tips you'd like to leave with the listeners?
Yes, I'll throw something in real quickly about nervousness because we didn't talk about that.
You're right.
And 74% of people have a fear of public speaking, according to the National Institute of Mental Health. One of the most important things for nervousness is to breathe. Make sure, and I talk about candle breath breathing, which we don't have time to get into now, but just gentle breathing that slows down your heart rate, which makes the oxygen go to all the parts of your body and then to your brain. And the other part is to curl your toes. If you're nervous and you're fidgeting around, and I do have a video on my website about this, stand there like a tree, curl your toes down as if they're roots going to the ground, and a lot of that nervous energy dissipates. And you don't sway, you don't move around.
Well,
and you look
that is a great tip. Thank you very much, Linda, for being here. I really appreciate it. I want to thank my producer, Nathan, who makes this show happen every week. I also want to thank Larry Wilner of LW BizFlix, who videotapes the shows, so you can see them on my website and on YouTube. Please join me next Tuesday at 6 p.m. when my guest will be Troy Brewer of the Brewer Investment Group of Wells Fargo Advisors. I'm Allan Hirsh of Allan Hirsh Advisors, your host. To reach me, call 443-977-4500 or visit my website, AllanHirschAdvisors.com. You can also follow me on Twitter and Facebook at AHABIZ Radio. I just want to remind everybody that today is Giving Tuesday. Please think about your favorite charities and give. We are a society that gives tremendously to those who less fortunate, to our schools, our charities. Please, this is Giving Tuesday. Please give. This has been AHA Business Radio on CBS Sports Radio 1300 AM.